guys, welcome to our last episode of The Power of Being Okay. On this episode we will be talking about diagnoses and taboos. My name is Miriam and to the left of me is...
Azim, and to the left of me is...
Farhal.
Ihsan.
Yasmin.
Zainab.
Azim.
Azim.
Okay, so the topic is diagnosis and taboos. So on this topic I would like to start it off by saying a lot of people get several diagnoses. Your ranges could be from depression, schizophrenia, bipolar, personality disorder, anxiety, OCD.
So in a lot of cultures that are traditionally known as Muslim countries, for example, where I come from, Algeria, I've never personally heard about my family back home discussing modern ideas about mental health. So if I brought it up to them that I felt depressed, or if I was feeling in a down state, or I wasn't too well recently, they would never acknowledge it as a medical condition and treat it as something worth the entertainment. Instead, they would just kind of tell me to simply cheer up or man up, for example.
No, I think I would even go far enough to say that a lot of our cultural backgrounds don't even know mental health exists.
No.
To an extent, it's crazy. Like if you were to even mention it within the household, they would be like, "What is that?" So
true.
I think that is a big problem within, especially the Asian, African, Arab community.
Yeah.
As not is the only not spoken about, but also it's not even known about.
No.
There is
It's a
no
big taboo.
It's ignored to an extent. Growing up, like not a lot of children are even taught by their parents to know what mental health is, or to know to kind of look out for it, or to know that it's normal to kind of have like mental health issues.
I think a big taboo in mental health, especially with several cultures, is, like Farhal said, it's not spoken about enough. And if you were to go abroad, there is minimal mental health hospitals, therapy sessions. There's nothing. They haven't got it. They haven't got the insight because they don't culturally believe it's a thing. They believe more maybe black magic, like we said previously, and evil eye. Whereas it's not actually necessarily that. You can struggle in many ways. A big thing that goes into that with your diagnosis is a lot of young people tend to turn to drugs instead of any other path, and that can lead to them being diagnosed with drug-induced psychosis. But it's not seen enough. People don't see how severe it is. You think for you to be smoking weed every day is not going to catch up to you. You're just going to become lazy and sluggish. But actually, the long run is you actually become very unwell to the point you end up seeing things. So you have a psychotic breakdown. Not necessarily always that. Sleep deprivation is a very big thing. If you don't sleep, if you don't have a normal pattern in your day,
And it's like a cycle, because they'll smoke so much weed that will affect their sleeping, and then they can't sleep without smoking weed again, and then they literally get trapped in a cycle.
And then they rely on the weed to smoke. So
help them.
like you said, it's a cycle,
Yeah.
and that's just ruining their like mental health alongside their actual health.
But the taboo is they say, I'm not unwell, it's okay, it's just a weed. It's like if they would have an edible, they say, oh, I'm just seeing things. But it's not, you're unwell.
You're on that, yeah.
And the realistic side of it, you have to come to terms with it. We can't keep hiding things away. We want people to reach out and to speak about what's wrong with them. It's a known fact.
Yeah, I think especially within our communities, we find out very later on in stage that we or someone that we know has a mental health illness, even ourselves, if we tend to put it off and just say it's normal. But if we were to actually look into it, it may be that we do have some sort of mental health illness, whether it's depression or anxiety, but we just don't see it because we don't know anything about it. We've never been educated about it, not within our houses, not with our friend circles, not even in our education and academic systems.
Some people don't like to accept it as well.
100%.
Acceptance, yeah.
Acceptance in
right.
mental health is it's just like ignored so much. It's like you'd have it right in front of you, like written in bold writing saying you have mental health, and you will jumble up the words and try to make it something it's not, and try to find other resources to kind of get over your mental health, when in like realistically it can just go by you talking to someone or explaining it, getting a second opinion, getting a second idea. even getting medical help, sometimes even talking to a friend, talking to your parents, opening up about it. It's
I think people don't value mental health as much as they do physical health, and they think that physical health is like more important, but like because you can see it more often.
Yeah, mental health is more of a thing. If you don't really explain it or feel symptoms about it, no one can actually look at someone and be like, you've got mental health.
Yeah, like if you haven't experienced it yourself, you might not know how to deal with it because you don't.
I think the question I would like to ask people around the table would be, let's say if tomorrow you were to go home and if you were to tell your parents that I have a mental health issue, whether it's depression or anxiety, like what would the answer be? Like, would they even listen to you, or would they just laugh it off? Like,
I feel like
go on.
I feel like because we have like history of that in the family in terms of like both my parents' siblings, because of that they'd be like receptive to it. They might not be as open as maybe somebody who like grew up here because they grew up back home kind of. So because of that,
So depending on the family.
Because they've had that experience.
I think people are more receptive if they've had it in their family and dealt with it.
Yeah.
But then, do you know what's mad? Every single one of us have a personality disorder. We just don't have it shown as much as others.
Yeah.
I think it's like 1 in 4 get diagnosed with something every month, and 1 in 6 in England people actually suffer with depression and anxiety in a week. So we all suffer from anxiety. You know that feeling we get like, oh my god, I don't feel like going out, or like today, this podcast, the way I was shaking coming here, but now I'm just comfortable, but I was so nervous. I was saying to people I was coming with, like, nah, can't do it.
I think that's a good point,
anxiety.
differentiating between normal reactions to stressful situations, which you should supposed to be anxious about, and taking that. So I do feel like there's, on one side, there are people who are belittling what they have and they need to get checked out, while on the other hand, there are people who are over-exaggerating about normal reactions to stressful situations. For example, just like how, like, if you have the common cold or flu symptoms, you can Google it and NHS website will tell you you're dying. So
that's why you should never self-diagnose.
Yeah.
Never self-diagnose.
Always get professional help too, because obviously they're experienced and like they've actually dealt with other people in different situations, so they actually know what they're doing. Instead of like, obviously from back home, the culture's in different. They've not really been educated of what it actually is. And then they're like, when they're younger too, they've not actually realised what they're actually dealing with until like later on in the actual time, and then they actually have to get like professional help. And sometimes majority like they don't know where to look for help too.
Yeah.
Like there is facilities there, like for example in school they might have like a department for that, but they don't know how to like actually go there and like kind of receive help.
Access it, yeah.
And some of
So
them they
true.
feel like they don't want to get help, like they want to deal with it themselves, but I feel like it's better for them to get professional help, because then because they know what they're doing, and when you deal with it by yourself, it'll just get worse and worse.
But do you know what it is? Imagine you go as a Muslim girl, I get diagnosed with whatever, I'm unwell, I go back home, alhamdulillah, I'm lucky, my dad worked in mental health, so he knows about it, whereas my mum was very against anything to do with mental health until she started suffering with anxiety symptoms herself. She started panicking, but she didn't know it was just the Moroccan in her, and willy, but obviously it's actually anxiety. But as someone being diagnosed with something, say I go back to her family who are not receptive, how they shut me down and tell me no, you don't have that. That's big taboo. They don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
Going off of what you said as well, as I said before, like I feel like my parents are okay now when it comes to speaking about mental health, but like when I was really going through it when I was younger, like say secondary, I also felt that fear of if I speak to someone then I'm going to be in trouble back home, so I think that stopped me from getting the help that I needed when I needed it. But I think it took like years of conversations as well, regardless of the fact that it was like on both sides. So yeah, I think that plays a part in it as well.
I feel like it's frowned upon too. Like they feel like if you tell the parents and the culture, they're like, oh, I might tell the other family, and it goes around. It's like they want to have that reputation, that they have the standards, that they want to be
It's
top,
culture,
and they
isn't
don't.
it? The culture is a big clash,
Yeah.
and it shuns a lot upon people's mental health.
I feel like people fear of like mistreatment by their peers and their friends because it's
Then
being
it seems
vulnerable.
unstable in a way,
You're looked
You're looked down upon
not
sometimes.
even down upon, but you're looked
differently.
like
treated
you
differently
have a face
as well.
on top of your face basically. You're looked at as a certain person, or you're labelled like certain person.
And they don't want to be
Makes
treated
sense.
differently too. They want to be treated like
Same,
everyone else.
because-
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like excluding you from other people. Like they don't know about it, so they don't really want to be. It's a sense where like they don't know about it, so they don't want to have to
Anything.
have to do anything.
Yeah.
It excludes you, and then you feel like, okay, should I actually get help?
Sometimes it's done out of care.
Yeah.
It's just like some people wouldn't want to put you in a certain situation because they know, oh, you're a bit sensitive to this.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that like just leads on to other stuff in your mental health. And sometimes it's just done because that person's just a bit sensitive. Let's not add them in because they're gonna ruin the vibe and stuff like that. That's
Then
why
excluding
growing up,
in a way.
it's always good to have that like balance
Yeah.
and that backup as well. So
I feel like teachers too, they need to understand who's like kind of got mental health too, so like kind of like when they do like lessons and stuff like that, they need to like kind of facilitate in a way where it doesn't affect it in a kind of way. And I feel like teachers are not really trained in a way where they understand it and they don't know how to handle with it. Like for example, if a student comes up to a teacher and wants to like talk about what's going on back home, I feel like they don't know how to react, and even if they have a section in the school, I feel like it's not enough.
No, I agree.
And they don't know how to like kind of take it to professional kind of way, and they might like say, oh, deal with it by yourself or go to your parents or whatever, like, so it's not
comfort
second.
at the end of the day. Like say if there's a really strict teacher but she's head of, I don't know, the social care, or like the only teacher that can help you out in that situation, you're gonna go to your maths teacher that you get along
have a
with.
relationship.
Yeah.
I think that's interesting that you brought up teachers, because you've got two types of teachers. So there's teachers who want to go into the teaching industry to teach and to care for kids, but there's a lot of people who have complexes where they want to tell people what to do, and they're attracted to teaching so that they can be the master of people below them, and that's kind of problematic in my opinion when it comes to kids and how they're being brought up, because kids are supposed to look towards their teachers, but their teachers themselves might have mental health issues which have led them to become in that industry.
Yeah, like I've worked previously in like youth, so I was like a team leader, and like we had like a safeguarding like training. So like you kind of train about how you deal with that situation, who to disclose it to, like kind of going out the room to kind of like discuss the situation, because obviously you don't want to be discussing it in front of everyone, and that's the worst.
Very big.
Yeah.
So it's a big thing, I think, and people being diagnosed with anything, you overlook it, you start to think, oh my god, you'll Google it, you'll go on the NHS website, you'll be like, oh my god, I've got this, oh my god, I've got that, I've got this, oh my god.
So what do you think is a bigger problem, overdiagnosis or underdiagnosis today in general?
Do you know what? From my personal opinion,
I'm going to agree with you, I already know what you're going to say.
I was gonna say underdiagnosis.
Oh, right.
But you know what I was gonna say underdiagnosis? Because if we overdiagnose somebody, at least they're still getting that help.
Yeah.
And they're still being looked at.
Yeah.
I don't agree when they're overlooked at too much, because it starts to actually get into their brains. They start to believe, do you know what, it's mummy cuddling. They start to get babied to the point, and they don't need it necessarily. When I worked in a support accommodation, we had, I feel like I worked everywhere, but we had a patient that necessarily didn't actually need to be taken out and cooked for, but then the lady in charge was constantly making us do it for him, and it got to the point where he actually got unwell again.
I think
It's finished, yeah, it's alright. He got unwell again because he was so used to people doing everything for him. He didn't do nothing for himself.
Don't you think that de-skills them a little bit as well?
That's what I'm saying.
It's the same with adult
So
nursing.
is it worse then?
No, but then if they're
because it's adding more
because
to
if we're
Being
under,
equipped with what they need to
what
like.
about suicide rates? If we're gonna be intense and talk about it, the amount of people that have been diagnosed, you know what? In the last year, sadly, I think I've lost 5 patients, and working in mental health, I've never lost that many. So it scared me to the point. One boy I actually knew I went to school with, and I can't believe it to this day, that's mad. He was diagnosed with schizophrenia, he was on medication, he was on an Azim, which is an antipsychotic. He was having that, he was doing his prayers, so he was a Christian, was sat with his family one day, was fine. He got discharged from hospital, was perfectly fine. But because we didn't overlook it when we discharged him, he ended up running out to dinner one day and actually jumped in front of a train and sadly died. But it's crazy though, isn't it? That within the time scale.
So in
train, he didn't know the train came.
In terms of the less common, more serious individuals, it's less common, but in those individuals it would probably be better to look into it deeply. But in terms of the common higher statistical person, it's better not to look into it too much and overdiagnose.
I wouldn't. Yeah. I mean,
Do you know
I
what
agree
I
and
think it
disagree.
is?
It's hard.
I
I
feel
think it's a
like
very fine line between both, isn't it? It's like where do you
Yeah.
see? I think it's case by case, and you have to be very good at reading the person.
Yeah.
Like,
But I feel like there's
yeah.
signals to that kind of person. So like, for example, if you've been friends with that person and they're kind of distant for like 2 weeks on social media, they've not really like messaged you. That's kind of way where they might be
Something's
going
going
through,
on.
yeah.
But then
Or
it's
like
red flag.
eating disorders, or like they've kind
Something
of lost
that's hidden.
a lot of weight, excessive
Yeah.
weight, stuff
But
like that.
then you have people who are completely normal, but
and you would never
you
know.
never know.
You never know.
So again, there's that fine line where like those signals and just
You
reading
can
that
I feel like
first.
that's what's even worse though, because they're keeping it in, they're not really letting it out to show. They're keeping it stacked up in their head, stacked up in their body, adding on to the mental health, which is even worse. So like, say like what Adam said, like eating disorders, you can tell that someone's gone really big or really skinny.
But
Like,
then what about bulimia and stuff? You wouldn't know.
Do you know what? Eating disorders is a very tricky
It's- yeah,
subject.
tricky
I'll be
one,
honest with you, yeah, because the amount of people with eating disorder also have personality disorder. Now then, that it goes in two ways, because
Can it exacerbate
you
it?
can't even get the help with your eating disorder if you're actively self-harming. The hospital I work at anyways,
Yeah.
we will not help you. We can't. You have to stop your self-harming behaviours and then we focus on your eating. So whether somebody becomes too big or too skinny, somebody restricts their eating.
That's like another cycle, because the unhealthy eating could be a result of the chemical imbalance within their body, causing them to think in a way
Form
where
of
self-harming is a good decision. And so if you're not willing to look at the eating, you have to get done with self-harming, but the self-harming might be a cause from the eating. It's just
It goes back and forth. But I'll be honest with you, I've seen a lot of people, alhamdulillah, recover, but then no one's ever fully recovered. No one is ever fully recovered. I'd be shocked if somebody turned around and told me, you know what, my schizophrenia is gone, my depression has gone completely. Because regardless, whatever you suffer, there'll be a time in your life that you'll suffer again. You know, we're always going to undergo trials and tribulations.
that's why it's something to, like normalise.
It should be
Nothing
normalised.
fluctuates.
I don't ever want to hear anyone say to me, it's not normal.
No,
Because it's normal.
100%.
Yeah.
There is no such thing as normal because it's heard of. It's just not. People just don't know enough about it.
But
And that's when the
in
problem
terms of
comes
taboos,
into
though,
play.
since we're talking about taboos, I think there's two opposite taboos. So I think in the East, it's a taboo to say you have a mental illness, but in the West, it's a taboo to tell someone they don't.
Yeah.
And I personally know people who have taken a mick out of the fact that in the West, it's such a bad thing to tell someone, like, no, you actually don't have a mental illness. And they've left the place I work at part-time, they've been away from that job for the last 5 years and they're taking redundancy pay. And I know personally that there's nothing wrong with them. Personally, I know they're taking mix. So where do you draw that fine line between always entertaining it, because mental health, you never know, So how do you draw that line?
It's very sticky, and it's something do you know what I mean? It's risky for me to say. So that's what I'm thinking. I need to watch what I say, because you can easily offend anyone. So I've
Just tell
6
the truth.
years. The 6 years I've worked within mental health, it's very easy for us to tell when someone is really not unwell. You can tell. I think because the first year I worked, I wouldn't have been able to tell nothing. Second year I worked, I was starting to diagnose people in my head. Third year I worked, I thought, do you know what, I've got this. Then obviously studying mental health nursing, it embedded in my brain.
Yeah.
You can tell by a person's character.
I'm scared now.
Like you can tell by people's characters. So you may say someone's taking the mick because you believe they're taking the mick. But I promise you,
I would never say that if I didn't know it for a
I
fact
know.
from them.
I'm saying to you, and because I've met people who have come into hospital. Where I did my placement for uni, they leave the prison and can come there to finish their sentence. And there are a lot of people that were coming and were like, nothing's wrong with me. I just wanted a quick sentence out. And I was thinking, do you know what I mean? I could have told you that. I could have told them that. Because of the way they acted, you can tell. So the way someone acts, if you spend time analysing different behaviours, as a job, I would hope I would know different people's behaviours, but you can tell when someone within the mental health is showing it or not.
So you've said that everybody, literally all of us, have personality disorders,
We
have
all
this
do.
and that disorder. So when do you make the decision to say that disorder is worth treatment or that disorder is not worth treatment? How do you make up the hierarchy?
So when
I
it
would
presents itself in like a what's it called, like a counterproductive way where it's harmful, I assume.
I would say with personality disorder, it's very sticky. It's a subject I don't really want to talk about much of because I've got a lot of opinions, personal opinions. But with personality disorder, you can tell. I promise you can tell. You don't even need to be an expert in the field. You can tell. They tend to be more emotional, very unstable.
Extremes.
Very unstable. If someone didn't reply a message, for example, they'll be like, oh my god, why did you air me? They struggle to
But I feel like
maintain
that's so common.
relationships.
That's so common.
No, but it's not.
But I feel like
That's
it's
when
a
that
fine
personality
line.
disorder
If it's like
shows
after
you,
like
yeah.
2 weeks and you've been talking every day, for example, and then suddenly it happens, I feel like it's a sudden change of the actions that they're doing.
Sudden
Or like, for
outbursts.
example, if they're going out, they're chilling with their
That
friends or
just depends on
whatever,
the person.
and then you
But
would
then,
know that
listen,
personality,
here's
and
my
then you see
question.
that personality change. And
I've got a
if
question though, for all of you that know at this point, if you met someone and they fall out with a friend every single week at our grown age, yeah, at 21 or 20 or 18,
So
whatever
they're
age
the
you are,
common factor. They're
Yeah.
the problem.
what tells you about them? They can't maintain a relationship. They
Yes,
cannot
very
maintain a relationship, a friendship. They can't maintain nothing. But they also had a bad upbringing. They don't have a father around. They don't have a mother around, or
They've
they
gone through
suffered
something
with
really
sexual
traumatic.
assault.
Yeah.
What tells you about the person? That's the personality disorder increasing within them because
There's no
They-
sense of stability in
they
this.
have no stability basically, but you can tell. So how I present myself, even though we all have personality disorder because we all have aspects of it, we all don't like
Everyone
certain
has a
things.
trait.
We all get needy at times. It's common. We're humans. I would hope we all have a bit of
So
emotion.
what's that?
A bit scared if we didn't.
So you said that there's no normal. So what's the baseline that you're ranging from to suppose a disorder?
I don't
What,
think
for
there is a
personality disorder?
baseline. Just keeps on
Do you know what it is?
increasing or decreasing.
Is it just like when it starts to actually affect
Just
you
fluctuate.
and
Like
get harmful to
physically?
you?
You
Yeah.
could. I
Yeah.
would say that, but then if I felt like I was unstable and something was wrong within me, I could refer myself to something like Healthy Mind or you
Therapy
can,
or something.
and I promise you, it starts off with personality disorder. You'll be diagnosed with that, but you can't be diagnosed until you're above the age of 18. Now, I say that is because a lot of children come in with all of these factors. As kids, we all come in with these factors. So if you're in CAMS, which is a Child Adolescent Mental Health Service unit, they can't diagnose you with anything apart from depression and anxiety because you're a child. Now, you hit 18, automatically when you go to adult services, you will be diagnosed with personality disorder unless you are having a really extreme reaction, like a psychotic breakdown. Your reality is different to their reality. And it's very easy to tell whether someone's actually suffering because you can see within that person, pupils will dilate. There's a lot of also physical common factors. So, do you know,
So what
do you think the physical,
you can believe someone's following you, you'll do crazy stuff, they say, such as smash your laptop, Apple Watch, think people are following you, run away. I know someone who ran away to Bournemouth because they thought somebody was following them. No one was following them, but their reality is different to my reality. I didn't see what they saw.
So
But
very extreme reaction.
you can tell because no one's in their right mind would want to get up randomly one day and say this is happening to me if it's not happening. But even if somebody did, like you said, they wanted to claim redundancy or whatever and they weren't suffering.
That's a problem
You
then
can
because they
tell.
didn't see the professional like you.
And I feel like people, they don't realise what they've actually got until later on, until someone else has noticed
That's
it. And it's
so
really
true.
important for other people to be educated in that to the point where they actually recognise that what's going on.
That's why I believe awareness should be a big thing. I feel like I wish we were all taught from a younger age
Do you think?
about different things within services.
Do you think that's partly why some of our parents don't have that awareness because they were never taught themselves, so they don't have the a baseline to like judge?
Because what can they say?
mental
Other than, do you
disorder
know what it is? Do you know how
Yeah.
many Muslims I see, that come in? And I said this in the last podcast that I was going to explain this, that I see actually more Muslims than any other religion
Yeah.
come in. And it's crazy because I'll be talking to as a Muslim girl, I'll be interacting with the parents, the brother or the sister, and they'll be like, yeah, nothing's wrong. Oh, someone gave me why? Oh, do you know what it was? He uploaded this picture and someone saw it, it was good looking, or do you know what it is? Because they're not, it's taught.
Yeah.
And culturally, we're not.
It doesn't
we're not
exist.
taught.
Yeah.
If you go back in Morocco. I met someone who was unwell and was actually admitted in Tangier in Morocco, and they were put in straitjackets, so like they were back in the days in America. He was saying that he was stripped completely and tied on the bed because they don't know mental health. It's not spoken about.
In my upbringing, my family, sometimes when we do see someone with those reactions, like say if I've just met my cousin and she's complaining about a friend that's just given her evil eye, in my head it's not like I'm saying you're lying, but in my head that person's not too right, because how can you know? Only God knows if someone's giving you evil eye, or only God knows.
Yeah.
I think it's okay to be suspicious of it, but I don't think it's okay to say that's the certainty. Because we do believe in that. We, as Muslims, we do believe in a spiritual realm, and we do believe these things actually happen. It's just, it's not correct to always assume that's the only thing that's happening.
I'm talking about anything that happens, they just like lead it back to that.
But like there's a fine line between that and actual like obviously mental health.
They don't even know what mental health nurses are. This is what baffles me to this day. Like my mum was saying to her aunt, my aunt, her sisters, oh yeah, my daughter's in, they like to ash you up. My daughter's in mental health nursing. They were like, what's that? I was like, oh my god,
to add to that point, it's also cultural to like view, well in my culture I feel like nurses in general, because like I do adult nursing, it's seen as like lower down. It's not seen as like higher up in terms of the caste system and all of that. So
what's the taboo about that?
So how I'm trying to link it is that maybe they'll think in their head that okay, that's beneath me, like why would I go get help, why would I be seen by someone like, do you know what I
think
mean?
they see nurses as someone who just helps the doctor.
Yeah.
That's it. Like you just go bring me that, that's all your job is.
It's
and you don't know anything.
Literacy as well, that plays a part in it.
That's why it makes me laugh when people think that, because the amount of times I've told a doctor what to do and they've listened to me and I'm like, yeah, get in. Like it's crazy. Even as a student nurse, oh my god, I was so grateful for my last placement, but the consultant was like, Miriam, what do you think? And anything I would go to him for, I would say to him for, he listened to me. And it's so heartwarming that you're
somebody
actually,
that
you know what, you haven't even got that qualification yet, but they're actually giving you that stance.
That's just to show how much ideas actually are open to like be accepted. Not even be accepted, but to be understood and to be acted upon.
Yeah.
So regardless of your status in like the health care or like nursing or anything to help with mental health or any sort of illness. Like giving your 2 cents just helps regardless.
That's what, so giving your 2 cents. So the problem with doctors nowadays is that their whole curriculum is based around providing pills and a quick fix as opposed to the cause of the issue. And if you even look at the way the GP system is set up today, you have 10 minutes in and out of the patient. You can't go go into the detail of someone's life and have a proper conversation with them as a doctor, the way the NHS is set up. And they're not even taught to do that.
Pay for that. You have to pay for that.
Private.
And
even private, you're not promised. I promise you now, even private, people are not promised the best outcome with. Unless you go to an actual specialist that can specialise in it and you feel like it will be beneficial for you.
Do you think health literacy plays a part in it as well?
Yeah. I think so to an extent.
I wrote an essay on
that. Did you? Do you know what it is? I think about another taboo. It's vulnerability.
Yeah.
People don't want to ever deem vulnerable or weak. Do you think I would ever want to tell anyone if I was feeling some sort of way that, oh my gosh, if I've reached out to you and told you, oh my god, I'm feeling so on edge, but like sat here, I could seem the most confident, bubbly person, but then you wouldn't have known deep down how I'm feeling.
Inside,
Because who's to say inside me?
Do you want to open up to us?
Alright, thank you. Let's go inside on that. But like, but what I'm saying is like, it's so easy for you to present yourself one way, but deep down you can be so vulnerable and weak. And I'm saying that because trust me, at times we're all open to it.
I feel like we all do that at some point.
Yeah.
No matter what we're going through, I think we always want to hide it. We don't want to be vulnerable because we feel like we might be judged or
you want to fit in. Or
there's some sort of issue always blocking them, and for some reason we believe that people won't understand us. I don't know if that's because it's our culture or it's the way we've been brought up or it's just just how we are as humans, where we just feel like we have to adapt and we just have to like just go with it kind of thing, and if we show any weakness we'll just be walked over.
Because you just think to yourself, why would I show that part of myself? Why?
I had a friend, well, I still have a friend actually, alhamdulillah, but basically she suffered with a lot of like suicidal thoughts and stuff. And I remember one time we were like speaking on the phone because she felt like, you know, she might do something. So we must have spoken for like most of the night. I think I must have gone to sleep at like 4 or 5 a.m. And then as soon as I woke up, I had a call from her and she was actually in like A&E because she actually did something. She's okay now, which is like good obviously, but it's like you never know. Even if you, like for example, I was on the phone with her for ages. I thought she was okay. I felt like she was in a better position. She'd even said it. Obviously, you can't take people's word for like face value, but you just never know.
And I feel like people are scared to like kind of help other people and kind of do like if you're on the phone a situation, so if something happens, they might feel guilty, and for like many years, and like they might feel like that's their fault, and that's what I'm saying.
So like going back to what Miriam like initially mentioned, that vulnerability, no one wants to know other people's vulnerability. Like I'd never, not me personally, but someone might never want to know what their friend's going through, just so they don't give their advice and be like responsible for it. So just to be on the safe side, let's just keep it chilled as friends, and you live your life, I live my life, because if I know about your vulnerability,
then I'm gonna
I have to give advice.
And that's a duty of care. I feel like then at that certain point, people that will just not care about other people, and there's no like kind of
human
that's what I'm saying. There's no kind of friendship and stuff like that. Obviously with like families it's a bit like closer, but with the friends it's a different kind of level.
Yeah. So going back to diagnosis and taboos, can each one of you tell me one thing you would suggest listeners,
in terms of
the main glorified thing as such, that you think should kind of be changed? Start with Yasmin.
I feel like being too worried about what other people will say if you open up about them. Like, I'm not saying tell the whole world everything you're doing, but maybe like a few people you can actually trust with everything and give like little advice. So just be more open to the world.
Linking onto that, I feel like people shouldn't be scared to like kind of go up to people to seek support from actual professionals, because obviously like taking it from friends might not be as experienced as an actual professional where they've actually experienced with other people.
So I feel like this probably be a topic in its own, but you know how when somebody is going through something, especially with like culture, it's looked at as, oh, maybe you need to pray more, your connection with God isn't, you know, as good as it could be, needs improving. I think it's okay taking that, but then also implementing like not, I don't want to say practical solutions, because obviously Islam is a practical solution in itself, but like also taking a look at health kind of solutions in the sense of like therapy, you know, things that can complement Islam and like practicing it. But yeah, that's it.
I definitely think the younger generation should be more educated on mental health, but also the older generation, like parents as well. Because if you're bringing up kids, you need to know about it in order for them to feel comfortable enough to open up to you. Because especially if you come from abroad or another country, not like in the West, you're not necessarily in the right state of mind to advise your child. Especially like war-torn countries where you might come and later on develop like a personality disorder, like, or some kind of
PTSD, anything,
and then like put that onto your children. And
I'll give my last piece of advice to the youth specifically. I feel like growing up, you never know when you've actually been, you never know when you're actually diagnosed with mental health. So sometimes it's just like a personality disorder, like growing up you never actually know, like you're still finding yourself basically. So I'd say if you ever do question certain stuff in your life at a younger age, before you reach older ages, is always just talk to someone, whether it's a friend, whether it's, I don't know, your mother, your favorite sibling, whether it's a teacher that you're comfortable with. Help will be literally found in any situation, in any environment. So always just like be comfortable. Just never feel like you'd be looked down upon or treated differently. Just always talk to someone as soon as you can, as soon as you see or feel any differences in. Yeah.
In terms of taboo, I'd say to mitigate that, I think we all should start conversations within our own households and normalise it within our own households, regardless if anyone's suffering or not. It should be a normal conversation, and it should be something that we should all be talking about within our households. Because if we don't start there, then it won't go around within our communities. So I'd say the first step, make a normal conversation within your own households. Educate your families, educate your parents, educate your siblings, and make it a norm to talk about something like this on any given time. And no one should, in your family, first of all, should feel like they don't know anything or they can't approach anyone. Like, they should be able to approach within their own households if we have that education within our own household. So I'd say start that conversation. In terms of diagnosis, I would suggest that seek professional help. There are so many free helplines, youth helplines, Muslim youth helplines. With the Google, if you just Google Muslim youth helplines, you'll get so many options that are out there for you. They are free. You can reach out to them, and they'll be able to assist you in these causes, wherever you're suffering. No one will judge you. It's an anonymous call that you can make, and they will be able to help you.
And going off of that, actually, like, we're very quick to go to the GP for like physical conditions. Like, it should really be the same for mental as well.
Definitely.
Yeah, I could agree with that as well. I think as well, not only just going to the GP, maybe kids should be educated more on who to go for what, because you're not going to get the best treatment from certain healthcare practitioners. You're not going to get the best from your GP when there are places that you can go for that are more specialised to actually deal with your concerns.
Agreed. And just like that, I want to say as well, it's very normal to suffer with anything. I don't believe that people should nowadays feel like because they feel a certain way, or they're suffering, or they have a diagnosis, or they believe they've got a diagnosis, it's not classified as normal. Everything is normal. There is no such thing as a normal thing. It's very normal, once again. But I just want to say thank you very much, guys, for tuning in and listening to The Power of OK. This was our last episode. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.